Welcome to this support video where I will run through the new advanced menu area as part of the KnowledgeSmart Power BI template. So this new advanced menu area here is more targeted at people who are used to working within the Power BI environment and might have more intermediate or advanced data analysis requirements. You'll notice that there are a number of visualization options here, and we have tried to group them in the same way that we've grouped the beginners and the intermediate options. So you'll notice that there is an invite history option as part of the beginners menu. There is then a different visualization as part of the intermediate one called invite history sunburst. And then we give you a third option as part of the advanced menu called invite history detail. So let's go and take a look at that visualization. For a quick description of what's covered on each page, a reminder to look at the description here at the top. So this is looking at your invite history in data in more detail, and you will find visualizations relating to the percentage completed as well as the number of questions answered versus the number of logins. So when we see a high number of logins, for example, further investigation might be required. So the ratio between the number of logins and the number of questions can be insightful. You can utilize the filter options on the right to isolate specific data. So here, firstly, we are looking at, the full name of the person that took the assessment as well as the percentage completed. So I can see that the percentage completed for myself in this case was 56. And I can actually see that the total number of questions that I've answered is 230 and the number of times I've logged in is 51. If I then wanted to look at a specific assessment, which might be more relevant, I can go and select my assessment name from the drop-down menu here on the right, and I can see that as far as this specific assessment is concerned, I seem to have answered 76 questions and logged in 18 times. I can drill down further and say, actually, only show me results from the last year, or calendar year, or months, or weeks, or days. So this helps me isolate additional data to look at. If I wanted to bring in additional filters, say for example I wanted to filter via a user data field or perhaps a dynamic group name, we didn't have enough space to add all the filter options here on the screen, so you can utilize the filters panel for doing that. And of course you have filters on this visual, filters on this page, or filters on all pages. So then simply drag in one of your user data fields or otherwise one of your users dynamic groups to then filter via those. Okay, so that is your invite history in more detail. Let's look at the second option. This is result analysis by job title. So similar to the results overview average score, instead of looking at the full name of the person here, we've actually grouped it into job titles. So this helps you kind of identify, which group of job titles is delivering what set of results. Now, one thing I need to highlight here is that we have utilized for the job titles the background data which we capture from the during the assessment process. That, of course, is an optional entry for users. So some users might not actually enter their job title. So if you wanted to update it, maybe one of your user data fields is used as a job title field, then you can simply update this job title field here under category. You can simply drag in the relevant data field to then make sure that your segmented job titles are featured in this specific visualization. Okay, so we once again just looking at the average of a specific group of people and against the overall company average, and then also the variance against that company average. Okay, so result analysis by job title. Then similarly, we are looking at results by dynamic group. So instead of looking at our job titles here on the left, we are just simply looking at our dynamic groups. Now, this one is particularly helpful for group analysis. So this is called training tag group analysis. I can drill down via one of our results score grades if I like. But here we're actually giving you an option to isolate the data for a specific dynamic group that you've set up. And I've actually incorporated some drop-down menus here for you to select the relevant dynamic group. So you can simply come here and select which dynamic group you want to show where, and they will then update for you. So this will allow you to then visualize 4 groups on one screen and look at which were the priority training tags per group. If you've got more than 4 groups, I would suggest just to duplicate this visualization and then of course choose different dynamic groups for that second page. Okay, so we are looking at the number of times a specific training tag was triggered. And how is a training tag triggered? When a user does not get a specific question right. So then it will trigger the training tag for that person. Okay. Let's take a look at the next option, which is training tag radar chart. Just a slightly different way of looking at your training tag results. So you can notice that I can very quickly isolate the priority training tags for my group, and I can use the filter panel on the right hand side to then isolate specific data. So that's just an alternative way of visualizing your training tags. Then let's take a look at result analysis by test title. So here I can just very quickly see the average score and the average elapsed time for a specific assessment name. And I can also filter down via dynamic group if I like. Next one, we just look at some background data. So this is primary learning method. This is once again a question or a field that is optional for users to answer during the assessment process. But it is very handy to understand how a person learned, maybe at university or maybe self-taught, because this might impact how they perform or how they are trained. So some background data to look at. Then we can look at our self-rating against our results data. So the self-rating score is once again something the user enters during the assessment process, and this is where they rate themselves. What do they think of their own skills? And ideally, we want to see an alignment between the actual results score and the self-rating score. And where there is a misalignment, this is something that requires more investigation and action to go and look at. Where they scored themselves lower than their actual average score, this might indicate a lack of confidence or perhaps just a misunderstanding of their own skill levels. You know, like I said, that might require more investigation. Then let's take a look at our first scorecard option, which is a brand new one called Team Highlights Scorecard. And here we are looking at a number of visualizations on one screen to help you get a quick overview of what is happening with your team. So here we are looking at the skills profile per result score grade. So how many people do I have in priority development, how many in considered development, and how many star users. Here I'm looking at the average score against the average self-rating percentage. Here I'm looking at the count of user ID against the number of invites sent and broken down per account name. Here I've got a combination of the count of training tags, the count of training requests, and the count of skipped questions. So I can very quickly understand which training tags are the priority ones to work with when developing my training plan. Here I can look at the questions that my team did well versus the questions, the questions that my team did not do well in versus the questions that my team did do well in, and similarly the modules that my team did not perform so well in versus the number of modules that my team are currently proficient in. Okay, so this is the team highlights scorecard, and I can use some filter options down at the top here to filter down. Okay, let's look at the question score grader. So a very good way of visualizing my question performance data. I can see which questions my team struggled most with, which questions were they sort of in the middle with, consider development category, and which questions did they do really good in. And then I can also filter via a specific individual, which is quite nice if I wanted to look at individual results. Okay. Then correct questions with time. So here I'm looking at all of the questions that my team got right, but I'm also looking at how long did they take to complete those questions. So I can select one of the questions and I can see who the relevant people are related to that specific question. Okay, and then we look at our next scorecard, which is around questions. So this specifically looks at your question performance data, and I can look at the overall skill profile, the frequency of use linked to this data. I can look at question proficiency, and I can search for a specific question if I like. I can look at the overall question accuracy against the overall question average. Similarly, the average time taken against the average elapsed time for my team. I can look at the training tags and then an accuracy score, overall accuracy score for my results, and also the overall time taken. So I can look at time relating to a specific question, for example, but then I can also keep an eye on what was the overall elapsed time. This down here gives me the average score of my team against a benchmark score. The benchmark score in this case is the KnowledgeSmart benchmark score. I can also include a maximum field here, which in this case I've made 100 because 100 is the maximum they can score. And I can also include highest score. So I can look at how did a team do against the highest score achieved across the company. So very handy in terms of benchmark comparison. And this one here on the right is very similar to that one, but looks at time. Okay. Then we've got the same scorecard as the one I've just gone through, but this one is looking at your module performance. So just have a look here at the top at the headings. The one is based on your question performance and the other one is based on your module performance. What we've also added in here for you is a link to watch a support video on a specific visualization if there is a support video linked. So then you can just select that option there. Okay, then we've got modules module performance development. So this is looking at all module names where they scored less than 90. And you can change that parameter if you like, but it just gives me a very quick idea of which modules my team struggled with most and an alternative way of looking at that. Here we are looking at correct modules with time. So similarly to the question one, these are the modules my team performed really well in, but how long did they take to complete those modules? Because of course, if they took really long, that can also impact things and something that you might want to include in your development plan. Okay, and then lastly, 3 individual scorecards, where we just start looking at things on an individual basis. So here I can actually go and select a specific individual and look at only their results on one screen, and that is you know, all the background data on one screen with their results. How many questions did they get right? How many did they get wrong? How many training requests did they make? How many modules did they get right? And how many modules did they get wrong? So very, very nice to discuss during performance reviews or review meetings. And this is aimed at individuals. Okay, let's take a look at the second individual scorecard. Similar to that one, but we're just looking at slightly different visualization options: skill profile, training requests, training tag analysis, and module performance versus question performance. So just a slightly different way of looking at that data. And then lastly, the last scorecard option. Here we're giving you an option as well to search via full name if you've got large groups of data. And this is similar to the other scorecard for questions and modules, but here we are looking at individual data. So if I select an individual, I can look at their skill profile, their average accuracy rating, their average work speed rating, their module proficiency, training tags, accuracy score, accuracy in terms of time taken, and then also the benchmark comparisons. So score against company benchmark and elapsed time against company benchmark. Once again, there is a link here to watch a support video on this visualization if you want to look at it in more detail. So that then concludes this support video covering the different visualization options as part of the advanced menu area. So please reach out to us via our support help desk, support.knowledgesmart.net, if you have any questions. And keep in mind that if you do need further customization to any of the visualization options, we do offer a consulting service where we take your requirements and we will provide you with a quotation based on how long it would take us to assist you with your requirements, whether that be an hourly rate or whether it be a full day consultation. So that is an option if you find that you have more needs in terms of customization. So we look forward to your feedback about the new template.